Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. And we are approximately, at most, 52 hours away from knowing what our initial 53-man roster is going to look like. It happens pretty quickly. Preseason wraps up later tonight. I think it's the Saints Texans are playing, and that is the final preseason game. And then a couple days later, there's a deadline. It is, I believe, 1 p.m. Pacific, so 4 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. Every team has to be down to 53 players. So by that time, you will know the 53-man roster. Some teams may do it before, but you definitely have to have it done by then. So with that in mind, given that we're so close, I wanted to go ahead and offer up a final guess at what the 53-man roster and 16-man practice squad might look like. And it's not radically different from what I had a handful of days ago, but there are some complications here. And here's the issue. The Seahawks look like they have a handful of players that are going to start the season on injured reserve. Some of them are going to miss the first four, I think it's 4 games. Some might miss the whole season. There are actually a few that I didn't even list here, guys who people aren't really thinking about. Guys like, I think his name is like LaMichael Bumpus, a defensive lineman. He's already on IR for the whole season, I think. A couple other guys as well, but I listed the guys that we're really thinking about right now as guys who have the potential to make an impact on this team in 2023. But the point is, if those guys start on IR, that means somebody else gets on the roster to start the season. But if you're on the roster for week 1, then I believe your contract is guaranteed. So, just as an example, let's take Derek Young. Derek Young, let's say he starts the season on IR. I'm guessing that he will. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing right now that Derek Young starts the season on IR and misses the first month. So I promoted Aesop Winston to the 53-man, and that's fine. I think people are happy with Aesop Winston. He played a really good game against the Packers. He's a receiver that there's a level of comfort with, so no issues there. But the problem is, I believe that Aesop Winston's full salary becomes guaranteed for 2023 if he's on the roster for week 1, even if you release him a little bit later. So it doesn't seem like much because his salary is less than $900,000, but you do that over and over and over again, it adds up and eats up basically all your available cap room. So it's possible that the Seahawks just maybe decide to run with a roster that's down a couple players. Like they just roll with a 52 or 51 man roster for the first several games so they don't have to spend that money. Or maybe this is why they had the 7 million in space. I estimated to be about 7 million in space anyway. Maybe they decided they needed that because they would need to cover for these injuries. Maybe they're going to try to deal with the problem entirely through practice squad promotions because you do get a couple of practice squad promotions a year per player where you can just push a guy to the 53-man from the practice squad. I think it's twice a year without making them a full-time part of your 53-man roster. So maybe it's a thing where we see Cody Thompson for 2 games and then Tyjon Lindsey for 2 games, and then we hope Derek Young is back by then. Maybe it'll be something like that. I don't know. It gets pretty complicated when you start digging into this stuff, but I did the best that I could with the information that we have, but just know that if the roster breaks out the way that I have it listed out here, then we don't really have any money. We could create some cap space still, of course, you can always do that, but we would not have any money left, really. It would basically be dry at that point. So we may find another way to deal with it. But anyway, quarterback, Smith and Locke, obviously. Holton Ahlers, I don't know. He didn't play but 1 series against the Packers, which makes me wonder if we're not interested in keeping him on the practice squad and we just gave him the reps at the very end because like I feel like if we valued Holton Ahlers, you would have given him like a quarter because Drew Lock had played the whole game. So I don't know. I don't know what we think of Holton. Wouldn't surprise me if we wait for every other team to get down to 53 players and then we go try to get somebody who another team cuts. Like, most teams are only going to carry two quarterbacks, so Dallas is going to end up releasing somebody who's pretty good, or at least interesting. Ben DiNucci is somebody who's probably going to get released from Denver. Maybe we bring him in. I feel like you give Allers more than one drive at the end of the game if you're thinking about keeping him on. But he did play fairly well in the preseason, so we'll see. I'm open to it. Running back, K9, Charbonnet, McIntosh, Dallas, same as before. Sir Roderick Thompson Jr. is on the practice squad still. However, Kobach is not because we waived him with an injury designation, I think. So if he makes it through waivers, which he probably will, then that means you get to put him on your IR and you get to come back to him whenever he's healthy, either later this year or next year, depending on the IR designation. Fullback, Nick Bellore. A lot of people are talking about potentially cutting Nick Bellore to save money and clear space for another player. I really don't see it happening, guys. I think that Nick Bellore has a lot of value to this team that does not show up on the field. I think that Nick Bellore is offering things to this team that are positive that we don't get to see as fans. That's the vibe that I get. I'm not saying that I like it. I'm not saying that I agree with it. But I'm also not discounting it either. Maybe he's like our Udonis Haslam, who was on the Heat roster for years despite barely playing because they just liked having him around. That's the best way I can put it. Griffin Bear makes the practice squad. Really hoping he does, by the way. Love that kid. Wide receiver, a little bit of a shakeup. Metcalf, Lockett, JSN, Bobo. And I think Derek Young's going to start the season on IR. I really do. I think he's going to miss at least the first 4 games. So I had to promote somebody, and I thought about who it could be for a long time. It was not an easy decision, but I ended up going with Aesop Winston. Matt Landers, I don't think is ready. Cade Johnson just didn't quite do enough for me to feel like he should be a guy. And Cody Thompson didn't play enough because he got hurt. And I don't know. Who else could it be? I mean, Tyjon Lindsey, maybe. That could be the other guy. But again, it wouldn't shock me if the Seahawks decided we're going to deal with this either via having promotions from the practice squad for the first 4 games, or maybe they just go, we'll just carry 4 receivers. We're going to run a lot of 2 tight end and 3 tight end sets anyway. We're just going to go with 4 receivers for a while until Derek gets back. We might do that too. But yeah, Landers, Lindsey, and Thompson on the practice squad. Landers for his pure potential. Thompson because there's a level of comfort with him in the offense. And Lindsey because he played well in that second preseason game and he has special teams upside. And Derek Young injured. Tight end, Noah Fant, Will Dissly, Colby Parkinson. Nothing to think about there, really. And Tyler Mabry on the practice squad, as he pretty much always is. Offensive line is the same. I think Forsyth played a little bit better in yesterday's game, so I'm going to give him the nod on the 53-man for now. And I think Island is probably necessary as well. I could be wrong about that. Island is a guy who, if you release him, he probably gets to the practice squad. So releasing him would not be the end of the world. You probably get him on the PS, and maybe you just roll with 9 offensive linemen. Plenty of teams do that. But I did add Liam Ryan to the practice squad just because I needed another practice squad guy, and he's a guy who's played a pretty decent amount so far this offseason. And then the rest of the offensive line is as expected and as it was before. Okay, so that's the offense. Defense is where it gets really tough because I think we've got a few IR candidates here. And I don't think any of these guys are going to miss the season, but I do think they're going to miss the first 4 games. I want to be clear here. As of right now, this is just my guess based off the way people are talking about them or not talking about them or the way their injuries were characterized. I don't have any concrete information these guys are missing significant time. This is just me guessing. But as of right now, nose tackle with Cam Young and Brian Monet both missing a lot of time and me not really hearing anything about either of those guys. Like, Brian Monet's one thing because he tore his ACL last year, but Cam Young got hurt, and it's like he disappeared from the team. So, because of that, I don't feel like you can go into the season with one nose tackle. That's going to leave you stuck in 2-man fronts all the time. Especially when that one nose tackle is Jaron Reed, not exactly an all-pro nose tackle. So I have Reed, and then I had to go with somebody else. I went with Matt Gotel because he played well in the preseason. But again, that's another guy who you put him on that active roster, you better understand that you're paying his whole salary now. You're on the hook for, I think it would be like 800,000 or something, somewhere around there. So maybe we cut him, hope he gets to the practice squad, and then promote him from the practice squad a couple times. And then you could also do that with Roderick Perry and hope that by the time that situation is over, Young or Monet or both can come back. A little bit of a juggling act. But in the simplest terms, this is probably the easiest way to deal with it. It's not ideal, I'll say that much. Defensive end, I've also had to mix things up a little bit. Draymond and Edwards still starting. I decided to put Levi Bell on the 53-man. A couple things happened. One, we had some injuries. And two, we played him inside against the Packers, and he looked pretty good. So Levi Bell looking pretty good, playing inside against the Packers, still making some plays, makes me think now that he's too valuable to let go because now he has that inside-outside versatility. I don't know if it's going to work in the regular season, to be clear. Like, that's thin. I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, Levi Bell's going to make a seamless transition to play inside in the NFL. But we have a need now because Mike Morris is also, I believe, going to go on IR. The way they talk about him, it doesn't sound like he's that close. So with 3 defensive linemen missing the start of the season, I think you got to promote somebody that you weren't really looking at. And Levi Bell, we're just going to have to declare you an honorary member of the defense for now. And one way or the other, you'll find a way to contribute, I think. Miles Adams, and then I also bumped up Jacob Sykes because of the Mike Morris injury and the Cam Young and Brian Monet. It gave me room. Jordan Ferguson was a guy we released and then immediately brought back, so there's clearly we like him. So I threw him on the practice squad. He played pretty well against Green Bay, so you can put him there. That's your defensive line. Linebacker, I don't like how little I'm hearing about Vi Jones. I don't like how little I'm hearing about Jones. That tells me he's a ways away, so I think he starts the season on IR. Because of that, I'm bumping up John Radigan to the roster to be our 4th inside linebacker, and then Patrick O'Connell gets to make the practice squad. I put him in over BBK because I physically I feel like BBK just doesn't really have much left, unfortunately. But could be one or the other, I guess. Maybe we like BBK more because he's a veteran. But this is how I'm guessing it goes at the moment. Edge rusher room is the same. Nwosu, Mafe, Taylor, Hall, Smith. Levi Bell probably gets to participate a little bit in that room, but I think we need him more on the defensive line. So if he can handle that, that's where he's got to go. Cornerback, Woolen, yes. Jackson, I think Jackson is still there. Until Witherspoon gets ramped up, which, by the way, could happen in the next 2 weeks. I think Jackson is starting outside, but Trey Brown's hot on his heels, and it wouldn't shock me if Trey Brown took Jackson's job. But they're both just keeping the seat warm for Witherspoon as far as I'm concerned, so it doesn't really matter that much to me. I don't care which way they go. And then Kobe Bryant. And by the way, last time I did this video, I accidentally had Artie Burns here. I forgot about Kobe Bryant. But yeah, Kobe's here. And then I have Lance Boykin and Chris Steele making the practice squad. I know Artie Burns has played better than those guys, but I don't think Artie Burns wants to hang out on a practice squad. He's got more important things to do. Safety, Adams, Diggs, Julian Love, almost said Jordan Love, Freudian slip, and Jarek Reed the second. I think Jarek Reed pretty much solidified his spot on the roster with what he did yesterday. And then I've got Sutherland and Blunt on the practice squad for now, with the caveat that Blunt could go on IR because we still don't know about the injury. And it wouldn't shock me if it was serious. Like, I would be shocked if the Devin Bush injury kept him out a long time. I would be shocked if the Derek Hall injury would keep him out a long time. The Joey Blunt one, I think, could go one way or the other. If Joey Blunt goes on IR, maybe you promote Ty Okada to the practice squad, somebody like that. And, yeah, Myers, Dixon, Stoll for special teams, 53-man roster, 16-man practice squad. No problem, no concern. It's unfortunate that we're sustaining all these minor to moderate injuries early in the season, but this is one of the ways I think we could deal with it. There are a few other ways, which I discussed in this video, but there it is. Let me know what you guys think. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Catch me on Twitch later.